What it do, fishery scientists? Real quickly, I want to remind you guys, if you're watching this video, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell to get notified every time I post a new video. Don't really ring the bell on my YouTube channel. I post 5 videos every single day. It will never stop ringing. Don't do it. Okay. Beyond that, huge shout out to my Patreon fans. Special content released every week. This week I want to welcome Ezekiel Holloway to the Patreon page. So, pretty cool. All right. So, let's knock it out. We talked last class and last couple classes, our main focus have been identifying the physical and just general characteristics of 5 types of salmon. And we looked at their names, 2 common names for each, and then the Latin names, which I don't remember off the top of my head, with the exception of one of them. I know that a dog is a Cheetah, and that's Oncorhynchus cheetah. Give me another one. I'm not going to quiz you guys on the Latin and Russian names just so you know, but I just want to see how many you can remember. Sayawasha is what? King. Kisuch is silver. Gorbushka. Pink. And I do not remember reds. Kita. It is. It is Nurka for the red. And Oncorhynchus is the Latin, but a lot of these names, they come from Russian because Russian fisheries noticed them first. So not all of them, like Sawachi, so I don't even know how to pronounce it, I can't find it. It doesn't look Russian rather when I look at it. But it's a combination of Latin and wherever they were first discovered. Okay, so today then, we talked about all their physical characteristics. If I just showed you pictures of various salmon in both marine and spawning phases, do you think just from your notes you could identify them yet? Yeah, we will here in a minute. Yep, I'm down. Cool. I wasn't expecting a yes right off the bat, but we will. We can check today. I'm good with that. Okay, so today we're going to start the life cycle process, and we might even finish the life cycle of our specific Pacific salmon. So I guess we can probably name this. I don't know. Anybody see what I named the first section? It wasn't a chapter. Because we did 1.1 and 1.2, and then when we switched to talking about these, it's not out of a book. Specific Pacific salmon, and then we talked about the characteristics of them all. So let's talk about the life cycles of them. Now, probably. I wouldn't really throw it, but I appreciate it. All right. So, remind me, I'm going to write a word on here that we already have, or I'm at least going to say it. What's anadromous mean? Okay, born fresh, live salt, die fresh. Okay, now, whether we said spawn there or not, the life cycle is a cycle, right? Like, it repeats. So there's no real true starting point, except when we talk about the development of fish and different types of fishes specifically, there probably realistically is a starting point. When you imagine the life cycle of a fish, what's the first phase of life? Spawning. So spawning is actually the last phase of life. You start as an egg, right? So we'll start there. All of our salmon are anadromous, and we'll just kind of list these out. We start as eggs. And by we, we're just going to pretend like we're the fish today. Eggs. Now, remind me real quick. Eggs are just freely released and they float down the river and they hope for the best. True or false?
False.
False. False, because they do what? Yes, they dig a nest. They turn sideways and they flip their tails. So, first little comment with this. We'll just say females, which I looked this up. We should just agree to have a non-formal name. There is no distinction naming-wise between a male fish and a female fish. When I see a big fish, like a big silver in the river, I think of it as being a bull. Now, obviously they're not bulls because they're not mammals, but bull is the term that you would use for like deer and elk and moose and all that. Anybody have a different alternative that you want? We could just call them male and female, but it doesn't seem to do it justice.
That's a dude.
Okay. We'll go male and female unless somebody comes up with an easier one. Females dig their nest. Now their nest, and I'm trying to think of who it was, might have been Adam. What do we call their nest? How do you spell it? 2 D's. R-E-D-D. Okay, females dig their nest, and then the male comes by and they fertilize it, right? So we had the females dig their nest. Awesome. Where do they dig their nests? Down in the gravel, right? They have to dig because they can't really dig in water. That doesn't make sense. But they typically will go on like the side of a river or a slow-moving spring or stream, rather. Okay. Now, as we do that, what happens when that female lays her nest? So she lays her eggs. Cool. Who else is there? Males. Males wait for the chance to fertilize. Okay. Now, just a reminder, milt is going to be what we refer to as the reproductive fluid of fish, eggs, or roe. Some places, if you're doing research, you will see the male milt referred to as soft roe. It's whatever you want to call it, except there's probably a few that we're just going to agree without saying that we're just not going to use them. Now, males wait for the chance to fertilize, and is it always going to be exactly one male? No, could be many. Sometimes that female will dig several nests in different places because she has more eggs to expel out of her body. So, they're laid, males wait for the chance to fertilize. So, milt, or if we'd rather, we can think of it as the material containing our sperm for our fertilization purposes, milt or sperm is released and activates with fresh water. Now, they're in luck because they happen to just be doing this whole process in fresh water, so it works nicely. When we catch our fish, we'll kill them right off the bat. Once we pick them, we'll kill them. But then you literally squeeze all the eggs into a bucket from hopefully 3 different fish. Then we'll squeeze all the milt from 3 different male fish into the bucket, and then nothing happens until you pour water in there also. So no fertilization occurs prior to that. Now, once they're there, we now have a brand new egg that's been just fertilized. Freshly fertilized eggs, are called green eggs. No ham needed. Okay. They're not truly the color green. It's just somebody fresh. Like they're brand new. Okay. Beyond this, we get this big idea that we'll talk about in the process. We go from our green eggs, and depending on the temperature of the water is how long you have to incubate to be able to move on to our next stage. The very first thing, and I've never raised chickens. Anybody in here have chickens at home? Okay. When you're incubating eggs, have you ever done the thing where you shine the light underneath them to look at them? What's the first thing you see? So you might see a whole embryo eventually, but I don't. Okay. So the good news is that fish eggs, specifically salmon eggs, are much more translucent than like chicken eggs, which is convenient. Beyond that, it's very clear to see once they develop. In our hatchery, when we get our eggs here, and we'll talk about it once we get over there, we have to go over there like daily to make sure that we clean the silt off of them because it's the cold running water that flows over them that delivers the oxygen that they need to live. So we will have pretty busy few weeks. The first thing that we will develop in our fish, and I'm intentionally leaving that part there, once we have our green eggs, we wait. Approximately after 200, and I'm going to say approximately 220 ATU, we get eyes. Okay. There should be an immediate follow-up question for everybody in here, I would guess. JJ, what do you got? What's an ATU? You guys ever seen that term before? Not ATV, close. ATU. So, these things, we'll go into detail about them. We are going to keep real careful track of the temperature of our incubating eggs throughout the entire process. As we go through, these ATU, and we'll just sneak this in here, ATU is accumulated thermal or temperature, depending on where you're reading, unit. We check temperature so consistently because it turns out that at 220 ATU, we should be expecting, if our eggs are correctly fertilized and growing, we should expect to be able to look down and see eyes within them. Now, for this, the way that ATU are calculated, we can go, like we will go over and do a worksheet with these eventually. But just so you know, if we had to estimate the water temperature today over in the river, any gut feeling what we might get? 23, get those freedom units out of here. 23 degrees Fahrenheit in how we're going to measure them. We're doing marine science. It's going to be Celsius. 23 degrees Fahrenheit in hindsight. And this is a weird thing that maybe we just aren't aware of oftentimes. Most water will do what at 23 degrees Fahrenheit? It'll be frozen. It'll be ice at that point. Because what's the freezing point in Fahrenheit? 32 under certain conditions. You have to have fresh water for it to freeze at 32, and you have to be at 1 atmosphere. So we are at 1 atmosphere essentially here. 23 would freeze the fresh water in the hatchery. Instead, we're not going to measure in Fahrenheit. We're going to measure how? Celsius. So real quickly, just to get a feel for this,